What you're seeing here is long overdue. I've built machines for many people in the past, for relatives, friends, and for professional applications for businesses. But never once have I ever built a machine for myself until now. I'm finally building myself a new machine to replace my aging 8-year-old Dell Precision Workstation 390, which is based around the Intel Q6600 processor. I have here 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM from Ballistics, a Z170 motherboard from Asus, an RM550 power supply, it's modular by the way, from Corsair, a Cooler Master Hyper T4 processor cooler, a Rosewheel Challenger case, an Intel Core i5 6600K processor, unlocked, and to finish it off, an EVGA GeForce GTX 960. A quick note about this build before I start: I originally planned on having a much nicer case, but unfortunately due to money constraints I had to go with the Rosewheel Challenger, which is a mid-size case, and I'm a little worried at this point that my Hyper T4 cooler is not going to fit in the case, so we're just going to have to cross our fingers and hope for the best. So without much further to say, let's get started. Unfortunately, my GoPro died because I was going to do like a time lapse of the entire build, but now I can't. But the first thing we're going to do is start with the power supply. So I'm going to go ahead and get that slotted in there. Next, I'm going to go ahead and install the CPU. There we go. So the triangle lines up with the dot. You probably can't see the dot, but there's a small dot on the board there. And I'm going to slide this back down. And there we go. Alright, so I have the cooler installed, so next I'm going to go ahead and pop the RAM in. There we go. Alright, so now comes everyone's favorite part. I got to put the motherboard into the case. So here we go. Alright, now all I gotta do is screw that down. Alright, the next thing I have to do is put the graphics card in. As you can see, I've already started some of the cabling. I've got the front panel and a few other things already wired up. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this in first before I finish that. this is a dual slot card, so take out 2 of these. Alright, there we go. Now I'm just going to put the screws back in. And there we go. After a ton of work with the cable management, I finally finished. I have everything in the case and it's ready for its first test. The only thing I don't have installed yet is the main drive and the slave drives, and that's because they're in my other machine currently, so I'll have to pull those out. As for the cable management, it was definitely not easy. I did what I could with what I had. You can see it's kind of messy back there where the front panel wires are coming through. This case definitely lacks cable management, and it was pretty much a nightmare to get everything to fit neatly. Here's a look at the cable management on the other side of the case, and like I said, it was not easy to get all this to fit back here, and you can see I had to use a ton of zip ties to keep everything flat, and that's something I really don't like doing. Zip ties are kind of annoying, but in the end, everything does fit, and there's very little to no bulge on the back panel with the wires under it, so I'd say it was pretty successful. Here's a look at the front of the case. I really like how simplistic this case looks, and the mesh does look pretty good on the front. The one thing that I did find peculiar is there's not a power LED. There's a hard drive activity light, but no power LED, which is a bit strange. Here on the side I have all the case badges, and I actually got my girlfriend to stick these on for me. You can't really see because of the exposure, but there's the Intel Core i5 sticker, the Samsung SSD sticker, a Powered by Asus sticker, and the EVGA sticker for the graphics card. And they're all pretty well lined up. Okay, so quite a lot has actually happened since the last part of the video. I've been getting ready to move out, so I've been really busy packing things up. And I also had to copy all of my files off my old computer so that I could use the SSD in this machine. And I had to also copy my data drives over to new drives because I was moving to larger drives, so that took a lot of time. So basically a lot of time has passed since the last part and this part. And also I packed up a lot of my camera gear without thinking about it. So now I'm having to record again on my GoPro, and my lighting is all packed up, so all I have here is this desk lamp to help me illuminate things. Yeah, so as you can see, my whole desk is packed up, my bookshelf is empty. I'm very close to moving out here. So anyway, on with the video. I have all of my drives in. So at the top there I've got my SSD, and then I've got my video storage drive and my file storage drive. And I've already booted it up and installed Windows. Sorry I didn't record all that. Like I said, I was in a bit of a hurry to get all of that data copied over, and it was a lot. And it was very time consuming, so I did all that off camera. I haven't used it much aside from doing those things, so I figured I'd go ahead and boot it up, and we would run some benchmarks to see how it performs. Also, we originally missed one of the case badges, so I got my girlfriend to put that on for me. I think it looks pretty nice next to all the other badges there on the side panel. Okay guys, here's a quick look at my Firestrike score in 3D Mark. I've got a 6543. It's not as good as I really expected, but I'm running a GTX 960, so I can't really be asking for much. Here's a quick look at the frames per second on each test. As you can see, physics is what really kills me. I do okay in the graphics test, maintaining above 30 frames a second at least, but anytime the physics are involved, things drop below 30 frames a second, and especially in the combined test, I was down to 12 frames a second average. And down here you can just see another overview of my setup. So I've got the GTX 960, the Intel Core i5 6600K, and my RAM. I got 16 gigs of DDR4 memory, and my 120 gig boot SSD.
Of course, I haven't done any overclocking yet at all, and so this is more or less sort of a base setup for me. Eventually, I plan on getting into overclocking and then rerunning these tests and posting a video comparing the two, so I can see how much of an improvement I actually can obtain. But now I'm going to go ahead and run the Skydiver test just for the hell of it. I know it's more or less geared towards middle of the road PCs, but I'm going to run Skydiver and then I'm going to run some PC Mark tests, and that'll be it. Okay, so I just completed Skydiver, and here's a look at the MSI Afterburner hardware monitor. I left it running while the benchmark was doing its thing, and as you can see, it topped the GPU out every time a test run as expected, and the GPU temperature actually sort of maintained around 50 degrees or lower. But of course, I did have the GPU and all system fans running 100% during the tests, so under an actual gaming scenario, the cooling might not, or the temperatures might not be as low because I wouldn't have the fans quite as high. But again, I just wanted to give this a test under the optimal conditions, I guess. CPU usage spiked a few times, mostly during physics tests, and otherwise it was right around 30 to 50%. And the temperature stayed between 30 and 40 degrees roundabout. So again, not too bad overall. And here is the results of the test right here. I got an 18,992 and better than 67% of all results. But again, the Skydiver test is a lower end test compared to Firestrike, so I obviously expected to perform a little better. Earlier I said I was going to run some PC Mark tests. I actually meant Cinebench, so we're going to move on to that now. Okay, so I just finished running the Cinebench tests, and first I ran the CPU test. So here on the Afterburner graph you can see where the CPU test was running, and then after that I ran the OpenGL test, and you can see here on the GPU graph exactly when that started. So if I line them up, it was like one right after the other there. Looking at that yellow line, you can kind of see the time difference between the two. So I read them basically one right after the other, and they performed really well. I've actually run this test once before, and I did it the first time without turning the cooling fans all the way up, and then I ran it again with the cooling fans all the way up. So the first result here for the OpenGL test is with the just the graphics card controlling its own fans, and then with the fans locked at full speed, I actually gained 3 points, 3 point something points. So not a huge gain, but still pretty impressive that jacking the cooling up like that actually did make a noticeable difference. And over to the CPU test, I did the same thing with this. The first result was a 560 and the second was a 592, so it did make quite a bit of difference. It actually jumped up an entire place on the chart, so that's really interesting. And another interesting thing is the only other Core i5 on the chart is way down here at the bottom. I actually beat out 2 Core i7s, given they are older Core i7s, but they have higher thread counts than my processor, same amount of cores, so they're hyper-threaded basically. And that leaves 3 i7s ahead of me and a Xeon, and all of those processors have higher thread counts, and one of them actually, or two of them actually, have higher core counts. So I think the 6600K performs very well, and I'm really excited to get into overclocking it and just seeing exactly what it can do.
So that's it. That is my new gaming PC, and overall I have to say I am super excited about it, and I'm ready to get in and start playing some games and really seeing what this thing can do in real world conditions, because obviously benchmarks aren't necessarily representative of a real world scenario. But after I find out what its limits are, I feel I'm going to start looking into overclocking. So maybe a few months, maybe a year. I don't know how long I'm just going to run it stock, but eventually I'm going to start getting into overclocking, so you can expect some overclocking videos at some point in the future. I've never really done any serious overclocking, so it's all going to be pretty much a new experience to me. If you have any pointers, please feel free to leave some links, point me in the right direction. That'd be great. And I think my next step really is to get a new keyboard and mouse, because I'm just using these cheap Dell wireless keyboard and mouse. I really need something a little better, preferably something with mechanical switches. and extra buttons on the mouse that I can program. But I'm just gonna have to save up some more money for that. If you have any good suggestions for those sorts of things, please feel free to leave those in the comments as well. I'll be glad to look at them. Cheaper is better because I'm a little strapped for cash. Like I said earlier, I'm getting ready to move, so I've been spending a lot of money. I bought a house, so that's kind of expensive, so I need to save money where I can. And oh, as part of that, I actually rearranged my desk a little bit. I moved my PC up on top of the desk, whereas my old one was under the desk because it didn't have the power supply pulling in air through the bottom, so I didn't mind setting it on the carpet. But this one, the power supply pulls air through the bottom, so I put it up on the desk so that it wouldn't starve the GPU or the PSU for air. So yeah, and there's just one last sweeping look at the computer itself with this nice blue LED fan in the front. I'm gonna eventually put some more LEDs on the inside of the case. Actually, the same LEDs that I have on my desk here. You can't really see them, but there's the switch, and I've got a strip of LEDs that run around the back of the desk. It's not plugged up at the moment. Actually, I can plug it up. There we go. So I have some more of these LEDs here that you see. So I plan on eventually putting some inside the case, maybe along the edges here in the front or somewhere on the side, so that I don't really have a window in the side, but I do have this big vent, so you can absolutely see some lighting through there. Not exactly sure, but I may make a video about that at some point in the future, so look forward to that as well. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Take it easy. I just wanted to point out some of the frustrations I'm going through here. Because I've packed up mostly all of my stuff, all of my USB cables are put away. So in order to get the videos off of my GoPro, which I recorded the last segments of that video with, I'm having to transfer them through the GoPro app to my phone so that I can plug my phone into my computer with a micro USB cable to transfer them over and do the editing. And I'm recording this on my tablet. I'm going to have to transfer the files from this over to the computer as well with a micro USB cable. So this whole thing's a bit frustrating. But I'm going to get it done, and this video is going to be put out before I move. So thanks for watching, guys.